welcome to Bobo Bunso Vintage Life. Today we're going to be chatting about knitting. It's time for a knitting catch up. Caught up with some of my sewing last time I met with you, so it's wool today. It doesn't seem the season for wool, I know, but if you love to knit and you're preparing for the months ahead, then you need to get your knitty on basically, don't you? And it's how I relax of an evening. I just love to watch period dramas or whatever, listen to podcasts and sit there and knit. I can't just knit, I need to be doing it while I'm doing something else, or don't like just sitting there doing other things, just watching without my knitting. They go hand in hand in my mind. Before I show you the knitting, I thought it's worth mentioning what I'm wearing today, which also feels a bit tight on the bust. I did say in my last video my clothes feel a bit squishy on. But this is a shirt dress that I made quite a while ago, but it's a shirt dress that only buttons to the waist and then goes into an A-line skirt. And I used the Wearing History smooth sailing blouse, but I changed the sleeves. I modified the sleeves to have more 30s style. And if you see, I rounded off the collar and then I put 3 rows of top stitching in the collar. And this is a beautiful vintage cotton that I got from Susie Sharp Vintage. A little vintage corsage there, original vintage buttons. So yeah, I really love this dress, but oh my, it does feel a little bit squishy. Never mind, I should just have to put up with that because I do like what I'm wearing. So now on to what I'm knitting at the moment. I'm going to move away from Foxy Lady in a bit and sit down because I don't want to be standing up chatting to you all the time. But I just put one of my latest knits on Foxy. So should we get a bit closer and I can show it to you? Obviously it's not finished yet because who wears half a cardigan? This is a beautiful vintage pattern I found recently. I love this sort of basket weave sort of effect on the front, by doing a lot of sort of rows of double purl and then some knit rows. And it's got raglan sleeves, and then the back is Squeaky Foxy Lady, sorry, and then the back's plain. I've now knitted the other sleeve. I'm working on the other front, and I can sew those together and do the button band, so it's getting there. So I'm going to go and sit down because I will be far more comfortable and tell you what else I'm knitting. And I think I'll take this with me so I can just show it to you sort of close up too. Now I'm comfortable, so shall we begin? The pattern that I just showed you, my lovely cardigan, it's from Wendy Wear. It's a vintage pattern. It's looking worse for wear, this poor pattern. Can you see that? It's a rather wide pattern. It's fitted down the waist, but the sleeves are wider, and it's meant to be knit on double knit on 5mm. So I'm actually using a thicker weight wool. I'm using Drops Nepal, which is one of my favourites. I absolutely love this yarn. It's an alpaca and wool mix, and you only get 70 meters on a ball, so you use this up quite quickly. But I've made, I think, 4 cardigans, and I'm working on something else in this wool. I really love it. So I may try this again in double knitting just to see how it compares size wise, because it's obviously going to come up a bit smaller. Whilst I really love this cardigan, it's a lot bigger on me than I'd hoped for it to be. I'm just trying to untangle everything over here. So the sleeves are really quite voluminous, as you can see. And I normally like a closer fit, but this is so cozy, and this blue picks out in so many of my clothes, and it's a bit longer. It's going to be really cozy, and when I knit it I just love looking down at the colour. It just makes me really happy. So yeah, oopsie. And here I am, I'm working away on my right front. I've got the sleeve done, so yeah, we're getting there. Oh God, where did I put the buttons? I had the buttons. Where have I put the buttons? Must be going bonkers. That's on the floor there. I lost the buttons. I'm sure I showed you before, but it could be on my blog chats, on Instagram, it could be anywhere. I'm not sure if I've showed you, but I did find the perfect blue buttons that match this forget-me-not shade of blue. So it says it needs 6 buttons, but I've only got 5 of those, so I'll work it to have 5 buttonholes instead. I don't want to do a mismatch of buttons. I really fancy using all of those. I did have a problem because I was really in the throes of doing my final sleeve, nearly got there, and I ran out of wool. And it's really hard, I find, with vintage patterns, because you're going by a particular wool that you can't check the yardage of. It's just about weights. And I did search and I couldn't find comparable, so I had to guesstimate how much wool I needed, and I ran out. I thought I'll probably need about 3 more balls to finish up this pattern. Wool Warehouse are totally sold out of this shade. It will come back, I'm sure. And I searched about, and then I finally found Laughing Hens had some of it, so I ordered 3 more balls. And I had an interim where I couldn't knit. You know, I wanted to finish or keep working towards finishing my cardigan, and I ran out of wool, which is like the worst thing to happen when you're a knitter. So I thought I'm going to get on with something else, and I'd got this wool in its acrylic. It's not my usual wool, it's a Hayfield wool that we bought in a sale, and it's so soft, and the colour is a gorgeous blue. It's not Air Force blue, but it's sort of moving towards that. And my daughter picked it up and said, "It's just delicious, Mum, isn't it lovely?" So I bought enough to do a cardigan with no plan of what that cardigan would be. So I thought, well, I'll start knitting something with this. And I searched around everywhere, and I just couldn't find what I wanted to make this up into. You know, it's a double knit. And in the end, I went over to Fable Knitwear, and I've always looked at her knits. I could have done a jumper, but I thought I wanted to do something a bit more intricate. And it was a cardigan that I've always liked over there. So I picked this one, the Forest Berry. Can you see this? So it's got quite a wide neck, these puff sleeves, and then this beautiful effect down the front. Absolutely beautiful cardigan. So that's what I'm doing here. She said it's inspired by 30s and 40s patterns. You know, really fit with my whole aesthetic. It's a pattern I'd already knitted. I think this was from a Rowan knit. And if you see here in this little pink cardigan, I'd already done these berries, the same effect. And this is in a lovely cotton. It's a pale pink, and if I could get this Rowan wool now, I would unpick here and lengthen the sleeves, because I don't really wear this because it's so short. And I love the colour. I mean, I look at how I used to knit, and I've sewn that together. That's atrocious, really. But this was early on in my knitting adventures. Hold it up, you can't see it too well, can you? But that's that lovely print there. Oh, that lovely pattern there with the berries. So I've done it before, and I know I really like it. So I'm knitting away. That's already here. I'm starting with the rib at the bottom, which always feels like it's going on forever. And this is knitting in the round, so there's a lot of stitches to do. But yeah, I started that. And then my wool arrived for my blue cardigan, you know, my forget-me-nots. So I got back on, finished the sleeve, and as I said, I've started on the front. Now, in other knitting plans, this is something definitely for the winter. I've got this cream sort of boxy shape, you know, it's sort of a shorter jumper fitted in a lovely cream, and it's got amazing knitwear, you know, pattern in the weave. I don't know if I've got a picture of it to show you. It's by Alice Templey, and I did change the bottom because it got side splits. I sewed them up and then the back was longer, so I just evened it off because I didn't like that. But it's my absolute go-to jumper. I don't really like polar necks that fold over, and I don't like a short turtleneck. I mean, this is probably the Alice Templey jumper. It's probably a pole neck you turn over, but I wear it stood up. I've got an exceptionally long neck. I have been referred to as E.T. in kind of moments as having a neck like a swan, but I've got a very long neck. So I just like to have the neck standing up on jumpers. And then Tara Dayton mentioned on her Patreon a jumper she was knitting, and it was an exact match for my jumper shape. And I thought, oh, that's the one. And it's not a company that I would have gone looking for patterns with, but it's with King Cole Patterns, and it's this jumper here. Can you see that? I will link all of these for you. And it's got this really beautiful sort of lace effect at the front. I love knitting lace. And this is, what was it, 5893, so it's raglan sleeve and it's in a chunky, so more of an Aran weight. So I went back to my favoured drops Nepal, which I'm knitting my cardigan in. I did buy this wool a little while ago, and I've already knitted in this colour chalk in one of my cardigans, so I knew I liked it. It's more of an off-white. Somebody said, oh, once about my cardigan, I love your beige cardigan. I mean, that's the biggest insult, and I said it is not beige, it is chalk. I do not wear beige. I do not associate with the colour beige. Thank you very much. They probably got more than they were asking for, but oh, beige, that's the biggest insult to a colourful person, isn't it? Anyway, I've started, but obviously it's got put to one side while I was finishing up my other cardigan. I just wanted to start it to see how it works out, so you can see the lace pattern starting there. So I need to get on with that, don't I? Once I finish my cardigan, I will get back on with that, knitting my jumper for the winter. I'm just thinking how wonderful that's going to look, you know, with all my wide leg wool trousers. I've got some lovely fabric to make some more, but I'll show you that another time. But I've already got a few, just with jeans, everything. I just know this is going to be an absolute go-to jumper. And yeah, it can get really chilly, can't it, in the winter months? So that's very needed. Another plan I've got for my knitting is a cardigan that's called the Datemaker. I've seen it tons of times knitted up across Instagram and social media, and a lovely young lady in my Saturday Sewing Club is also one of my patrons at Bobo Bun's Sewing Club, and we've shared so many similar interests. So we're always talking about fashion history and design and period dramas, just all sorts of things, you know. Telling me about the Datemaker cardigan and how she wanted to knit it, and she'd looked everywhere and she said, I got determined, because it isn't easy to find the pattern for this. And after 2 hours of searching, she found the pattern. So she kindly shared the pattern with me, which I was really, really thrilled for. I mean, I shared something back with her, you know, I did a swap, even though she didn't expect me to. So I'll pop a picture up of the Datemaker. You'll probably be familiar with it. And she said she's knitting it in an Aran weight, and I think that probably is what it needs. So yeah, I will probably go back to buying drops Nepal to make mine, because it's kind of jackety, but I've always wanted to make this cardigan, so I'm thrilled to finally have the pattern. But I can't share the link, I don't think, so I don't know where it is. If I can find it, I will share the link, because it's an elusive pattern, but I shall do my best. So that will be my next plan after all of these, and I've really got to start on the Fair Isle cardigan. I haven't been brave enough to start that because I know I can't watch TV. I'm going to have to absolutely concentrate to do that, so that hasn't begun yet. Now, in other knitting news, I've been really lucky to find 2 books recently. This one adds to my 1940s collection, of which there were 7 produced during the war years, and this one's called Modern Knitting Illustrated. It's got a little lamb pulling a cart with a ball of wool on the front. Can you see that? And there's some amazing patterns in here. I absolutely love them. I will show you through them. The second book I found is this one. I will just turn it around to read what it's called. Knitting 1930s and 1930s Originals, and it's by Nancy Vale, and it's an incredible book. I didn't realise in the 1970s when this was produced that they would have been making these 1930s and 40s patterns, which is silly really, because fashion looked back to the past, so why wouldn't they have been knitting? You know, I did a whole talk on Patreon about the 70s nostalgia for the 30s and 40s, but just hadn't dived into exploring knitting. But there's some amazing patterns in this book, so I will show you inside, and then if you manage to get a copy of it, you will will know it's worth doing so. It does smell terribly foisty though, as some old books do, but yeah, I am very inspired by this book. But I don't think I need to be adding any more projects to my list right now, do you? I need to get on with what I'm knitting, and then I can think forward, even though it's always tempting to get more wool, isn't it? So, I hope you've enjoyed my catch up with where I'm at with my knitting at the moment. Of course, I'll share all of them with you when they're finished, and as I said, I'll put links below for anything that you might want to have a go at. So all that remains for me to say is please subscribe if you don't already, and comment so we can chat, and let people know that I'm over here. And tell your friends if they're interested in the type of stuff that I talk about. I have got lots more planned for you. I'm thinking you might be interested in some Recreate the Look from period drama TV, based on some talks that I did on Instagram, some lives with Charlotta's pattern cutting school. I'm trying to think now, it must be 3 years or more ago. I absolutely loved doing those with her, so I was thinking about revisiting them for my channel. And it's the sort of thing I do with my Patreons as well, you know, in smaller snippets. So, you know, looking at the period dramas and how we recreate those looks from patterns that you can get. And with Charlotte, we also talked about how you could pattern cut those patterns. So I think I'll be doing that with you, because I always love, that's how I get my inspiration. And obviously there will be more sewing and knitting. Lots more to come, as always, because I love chatting with you and spending time with you here. Until I see you again, I shall say goodbye and wish you happy sewing and knitting. Bye bye for now.